Hey guys, Teresa here with Sippie Couture. No fancy intro for you guys today. I don't even know if this is going to work, to be honest with you. I have somebody that wants a cup. They sent me a picture of someone else's glitter, and I don't know, I don't really want to ask the whole not my photo, what color is this thing? So I'm going to just try to see if I can create it. It has like this really opaly look to it, and I'm going to go with Eliza Jane from Mr. Nola Glitter for the glitter for this. One solid glitter all the way through. But I want it to be like this soft transition of opals and just in no certain order at all. So we'll see what we can do, because I definitely do not want it to be any sort of like super punchy. I want it to be soft. So we're gonna go with this. I have what colors am I using? I'm using a matte acrylic paint. This one is Pink Blast. And I have a purple pulled, but I really don't want to use the purple. I want to be able to keep that purple color away from everything and not have it go too bold with the purple. So I'm hoping just using my pinks and my blues, I can mix it to get the color I want and not really force a bold purple on here. We'll see. Hopefully it works. I mean, I know it has before, so let's just see if we can get it to go again. I have a white pulled. It's Artist Loft Metallic White. I'm going to throw some of that on between some of the colors to see if I can use that to kind of soften it through. Okay, I have this back one done. And this is, I didn't really want too much blue on here at all. Let's see. It's actually working. All right, so I'm going to keep, so a minute ago I had my paintbrushes somewhat separate on the colors. Probably should have poured this out on a paper plate or something first. Two seconds ago, my mother was telling me to be ready with all my supplies before I do this. Like, seriously, 2 seconds. There's my purple. I'm bringing this on a really big angle so that it has more of that opaly look to it, and it shifts with the light so it doesn't just sit in one spot. And I know this is a hot mess. Just be patient. Stay with me. What I'm going to do after I get all of these colors on here, or both of these colors on here, is I'm going to really go over it with that white, and that will really soften it. Whenever you're doing these, make sure you're using two colors that won't go super brown on you. That would just not be good right now. And I'm using this white, and we're going to soften it. Not switching my paintbrush or anything. The good thing about putting this white on, as your other paint is still wet, is that it will help it blend. It will give it all this like really pretty metallic shine to it. I'm going to go every which way around the cup so it kind of fans out in every direction. The opal that I'm using is super, super shifty. It's just so pretty. So we'll have some of these pinks, blues, like the purplish look really just pulled together. And this little paint method that I do this for the base for a lot of my ombres. If my spray paint isn't going to work the way that I want it, I'll grab a paintbrush and I'll kind of just ombre with all the paints to be something that I like. Okay. Yay. I'm a lot happier. Halfway through painting this, guys, like a few minutes ago, I was just thinking, yeah, I'm going to delete this video. This is going to be a mess. But I don't know. Kind of like that. It definitely looks like the cup she sent me. At least the background colors. So, let's try. And I'm one of those people that if someone sends me a cup and I have no idea what it is, or if I don't know, if I feel like it's, well, not I feel like, a lot of times it is the right thing. I'm just kind of like, you know what? I can't do that like they did. If they are set on, oh my God, I love this. Can you do this? I'm like, I cannot do it just like they did. Like, you need to contact that person. I really appreciate it, but you got to contact that person. I know I can't pull that off. And I do that a good bit. But for this one, I gave out some cards some gift cards to some teachers. And she picked this. So now I'm kind of like, uh-oh, can't quite do that. All right, I'm just showing you, this is the color that I'm using. This is Eliza Jane. Guys, it is so pretty. It is so, 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 so pretty. I'm not going to put it on the cup yet. I'm going to wait for this to go ahead and dry all the way. And then I'm going to go straight on with epoxy. Nothing special. I'm not going to seal it. Straight with epoxy, and then get this gorgeous one color on here. And see how quickly we can fall in love with it. Alright guys, I'm going straight on with Mr. Nola's Speed Coat Epoxy. I don't know how much I'm using because it's what's left of this little cup after I set. How many other? Maybe 5 others? And I'm doing a fairly healthy coat. If this was going to be a tumbler with fine glitter, I don't know the exact cut size. But if I was doing like a fine glitter on this, then I would definitely not be putting this much epoxy. But since this is a chunky one, I like for it to be a little heavier on epoxy. That way I know that my my glitter is going to lay down a little easier. And nothing about this step is ever pretty that I do. So I'm going to hurry up and get this epoxy on it. I'm using the heat to help me spread out what's left and get the sections that I didn't hit. Oh, and I'll show you a really, really easy trick that I figured out the other day. So I think I told you guys before that I like to use fast setting epoxy. And I hardly ever, I'm willing to say never, set just one cup with fast setting epoxy at a time. Since I use it so much, I go through the whole line of cups and I do it. And if there's something that has to be glittered, I'll do just like I did with this and take whatever's left in the bottom of the cup and lay it on there. Sometimes there's not a lot in that bucket, and when I tell you I'm stretching it to make it last, it's rough. So if you use that fast setting type epoxy and you're trying to spread it out and you're using your heat gun, I'm going to show you, I'm doing this so I can show you. What you'll get is, you see how you have those lines in your epoxy? If you put glitter over those lines, you'll be able to see all of those lines. Like, you see that? You'll be able to see those lines through the glitter. It will soak into some sections more, and you'll just be able to see it. Even if it's not this much, you can use, you know, the bare, hardly any epoxy, and you'll have those lines show. Something I found out to get rid of those lines, and this is also the case if you're using regular epoxy, this does not just apply to speed dry, is that whenever you get those lines like right there, and look guys, this is going to show a little different because there is so much epoxy on here, but what you do is flatten out your palm, make sure your glove is pulled tight, and if you go through your whole cup, and if you do this to your cup, and like I said, this is a lot of epoxy, so it's going to show a lot different, but this is mainly if you have like a thin coat, a lot thinner than what this is. If you go through your cup, and if you do this, what you'll do is you'll flatten out those lines, and as they flatten, you'll also give it kind of like a ripply look, and as the epoxy self-levels, it will self-level without having those big streaks in it. it will go to like a nice flat surface. Like I said, there's a lot of epoxy on this cup, so it's definitely showing some of those ripples that I just made, which isn't a big deal because I'm using a thick, chunky glitter. But for your thin cuts, use the palm of your hand. Make sure your glove isn't bent. Make sure you can't see like any big creases. Keep your palm really flat and just go and tap your whole cup, and that will get rid of all those funky lines. So that's, I don't know, definitely helped me out a few times when I put some glitter on. Well, getting ready to put some glitter on, I was like, oh my god, there's lines, what do I do? And I panicked and I like tried to smush it down. I was like, no, stop. And when I did that, I was like, oh my god, that totally worked. So then I went through, oh, this is perfect. So then I went through and flattened it out. Holy cow, guys, wait till this comes back around. Okay, this is Eliza Jane from Mr. Nola Glitter. Oh my goodness. Oh, that's perfect. See, I didn't want big old chunks of blue. I wanted to have a really pink and purple shift because that is the picture that the lady showed me. Look, I'm missing my paper again on one side. I need bigger paper. That's the picture the lady showed me. Oh my goodness. I wonder if this is a glitter the girl used. I mean, definitely possible. I bet you that's what she, well, I don't know. I don't know what she used. This is what I'm using. I'm happy. Oh, I'm happy with that. All right, so this is a part where I always tell y'all one thing and I do something completely different. So let's watch that play out again. When you're doing your chunky glitter, you have to, I'm gonna say you have to, I have to lay it down really flat so you're not cursing at your epoxy when you're putting it on, and you have all these big nasty chunks sticking up. So I used a lot of, ooh, get out of there. I used a lot of epoxy, and if you go to smash down some glitter when you're using a ton of epoxy, this is parchment paper, wax paper, whatever you want to call it. If you try to smush it down when you have just puddles of epoxy and your glitter soaking into that epoxy, what's going to happen is that as you're smushing it down, the epoxy is going to get, parchment paper will get stuck to the epoxy, and then you'll end up pulling off your glitter in sections. I'm fairly confident with how much glitter covered that epoxy. I know I put down a healthy coat, but at the same point, there was no massive puddles that I saw that I thought would be an issue, so I went for it. Just be careful. If you're unsure if you maybe put too much, you can wait just a few minutes. Like I said, I'm using this speed dry. Guys, this speed dry, like I could come back and touch this cup easily in 2 hours and I'm not going to have any issues with anything being tacky. It's going to be right where I want it for my next coat, which is perfect. So now I'm taking the ends. I'm going to make sure I have this glitter at the bottom kind of smashed up in there. That way I'm just not fighting with anything that's going to be super crazy. I'm going to let this spin and set for probably 2 hours because I have some other work to do and I need to make sure I get some things done. So I'm going to let this go for 2 hours. You don't have to spray it with clear sealer between this and the epoxy step that I'm going to do next. But every once in a while I'll get a glitter that just isn't loving epoxy that day and it'll want to repel. So what I do, especially with the chunkies, it's easier for the epoxy to slip in between all those little cracks when it does have a sealer on it. So I'm going to get my Rust-Oleum 2x clear sealer. Not sure if I'm going to grab gloss or matte, whichever one is closest I'm going to grab. And then we'll hit that with just one coat is all I do, just to be safe. And then we'll go on with more speed dry epoxy. Alright guys, we're at 2 hours later. We're going to go ahead and hit this with clear gloss sealer by Rust-Oleum. You can definitely see, hopefully you can see it from there, I'm not sure if you can, but there's definitely a subtle shift between the purple and the pinks, just like we wanted. It came out great. And I know y'all know how to spray paint and do this clear coat, but I'm showing you just in case anyone's wondering exactly how much clear to put on it. That's pretty much all I do. Sorry that I'm a mess. I'm going for productive, not cute, so we're going to be messy today. that's what I got. We're gonna go ahead and let this sit and fully dry before we go to our layer of epoxy. Back with epoxy, and this is Mr. Nola's Speed Dry. And this is what I love about this. There's bubbles in the cup, but once it covers this the bubbles just kind of pop on their own, so there isn't a ton of work that has to be done, or no work that ever has to be done on my end with my torch. According to the way that I spread it. Don't know if anyone else has this, but so what I do is I kind of drop it on and I let it roll through, and then as I get to the end I kind of just work it out and down. I find that this way is really good at giving me a good solid coverage. It gets everywhere inside all these gaps, and it doesn't let it pool up like in any certain spot. And all the bubbles, the way that I work it through, it all pops over. Whenever I'm doing this, I'm very, very careful not to push into the glitter. I definitely don't want to press down on it. I want it to just kind of glide over. This is a thicker, I'd have to check the viscosity of this before I give out wrong information. But it is somewhat thick when it goes on, so your hand is already not quite on the glitter. You're already kind of just floating over it. So I'm going to make sure I stay with that and go easily all the way and make sure it's covered everywhere. This is going to end up taking 2 coats. There's so many times with this speed dry that I've gotten away with 1 coat, especially on like the last coat covering vinyl. Ooh, I just dripped. If it's a last coat covering vinyl, or if it's a thin coat, I'm sorry, not thin coat, if it's a thin glitter, I can get away with just that 1 coat. Before I go on to decals, I might have to sand it just a little in a few spots, but for this, it is hard to concentrate and talk. But for this, it's really good. It's really good for just getting like that 1 coat on there. And guys, I'm telling you, like, not a lot of bubbles. I'll go through and I'll pop this just for peace of mind. Like I said, usually by the time I just go set my other cups and I come back, everything's already popped and at the top. So we're gonna give this a few minutes to turn, see what it does, come back. I'll check for bubbles. I really don't have any with this stuff. It's amazing. So, but since it's a chunky glitter, I am definitely gonna check. Let this spin for a little bit, come back and see how we look in a few minutes. So we have this first coat on here. We're gonna go through and clean up our bottom. What I start by doing is I go through with a knife or just a sharp blade if I have my little craft knife, and I trim off around the edges. I don't do the bottom of my cups anymore. I used to, but I really got tired of fighting the times that it didn't coat evenly. And there was like a little bump or something. It got frustrating, so I stopped doing it. So I trim that off, and I'm gonna go with acetone and kind of wipe around here and make sure that they don't have any big bumps of epoxy or glitter right around this rim, because I do need this to kind of slide in an even circle to get the bottom of this part cleaned up. So I have this cup edging tool from Wicked Shimmer, and I have it down to the lowest setting with a black piece under it. And what I like to do is I wedge my knife in between the blade and the bottom black piece. Did I say bottom? The bottom black piece, because I feel like it gives a little more stability. It doesn't want to wiggle around on me. So then what I do is I take my cup, I put it right up against the blade, and it's hitting the blade, it's hitting the razor, it's not hitting the knife. The knife is just making sure that blade doesn't want to kind of give a little when I do this part. And then I just kind of muscle it around. And I need to change the blade on this thing. But I'm going to go through, and I'm going to keep turning it until I hear it start to cut. A lot easier if you're just using paint. You know, if it's just a painted tumbler or a thin glitter. The chunkies need a bit more fight, but it makes it worth it. All right. You can hear it starting to cut. I always turn away from myself. The time that I turned to myself like that, the cup slipped, and I swear to you, it almost broke my nose. I was so scared. All right, that should be it. So the good thing about trimming off the bottom like that is that you loosen the epoxy that's on the bottom of the cup. So then you could just kind of pull it away. And then we have it on this other part, and we'll do the same thing. And it's pretty easy, it comes out clean. Get my knife out. That's it. It's that easy. So then I'll take some acetone. I'll go through and I'll clean it through here. Sorry about the noise if you hear the saw. My husband's cutting a bunch of wood in the garage. All right, so we have that off, and I saw a piece that, right here, that one little chunk didn't want to come loose, so I'm just going to take my knife, slice that off. And I have a super nice rim. Now, the next coats of epoxy, I am not going to trim that off again. I'm going to bring it all the way down to the bottom and make sure the bottom of this stays clean. And then I will end up, that final coat of epoxy, that will seal everything. So we're not doing any more trimming. This is your end result. Just make sure you get it really clean with some acetone. If you need to, get a magic eraser with some acetone and clean that through. I'm also going to take my knife, run it along the top, make sure I have this trimmed down. And then I will bring it to another coat, a second coat of epoxy. Since it is a chunky glitter, it still is a little rough. I definitely do not want to take a sanding sponge to this right now, because what will happen is that any of that pretty shiny glitter, if it's close to the top, it'll dull. I don't want to dull the glitter. So I'm going to get another coat on here, make sure everything's covered, and then go through and sand off my rough spots. All right, so I have this little Dremel flap wheel piece. And the size of this is 3/8 is a flap wheel that I have on here. I usually do this outside, but for sake of the video, I'm going to show you in here real quick. This is how I clean off, give myself a nice rim around the top. I just set this on here. And I just run it along in a circle. Okay, and that's pretty much it. So then you'll have like this little clean line around the top. The next part that I do with my sanding, when I take my my sander and I run along the top, that really gets it all clean and smooth. And then you'll have just a little stainless showing, and it's perfect to just seal your tumbler in. All right, guys, vinyl time. I'm just weeding out the rest of the names that we're doing on here. It's the name Jessica. I have this super pretty rainbow vinyl from Tech Wrap. It's like a mirrored rainbow. It's really, really pretty. And I always offset that. A lot of the times I offset that in this really shimmery white. I don't know exactly who makes this. I get this from a place over in Slidell, Louisiana, that's close to where I'm located. And it's just really shimmery, pearly white. And they just call it super sticky, ultra white glitter sticky. So I'm not quite sure who makes it. Whenever I find it, I need it, and I don't know, in a lot, because this is like my go-to white. It's really, really pretty. So for the font, one of my favorite fonts right now, it is, oh, I just dropped something. It is the font Mountains, and I know I got it from a font bundle, but I don't remember which website. It is a thin font, so what I do is I offset it. I mean, this is offset twice. I first offset it in 0.009, and then depending on the name, I do not weld before I offset. Let me go ahead and say that. I have a Cricut. I use their new offset feature. I find at the times I weld it first, the lines will close in, even if I have a good distance, because I know when you get too close, the insides of the letter will fill in, but even if you have a good distance, it still fills in, and I don't like that. So I offset this in 0.009 and then again in 0.006, just to give me a little, give it a little thicker so I could work with it without completely losing my mind. The background is offset in, what did I do? Let's see, I did this one in I was gonna tell you and then it went away on my screen. It was 0.05 or 6 that I offset it in. So I got this where I wanted, and then I did that one. And we're gonna get it on the cup. I always see people building decals on the cup, and I think that's such a great idea, but for some reason, whenever I do that, I get like these little bubbles under my decals. No matter how careful I lay it, what method I use, I still get these little bubbles when it's thick. So I just build it on the cup. I did end up going in and putting another layer of epoxy on here. Since it was that thick, you know, the chunky glitter, I wanted to do another coat just to be sure it was smooth and I wasn't gonna have any issues. There are still a few little bumps. I wanna make sure I avoid those. So I'm gonna go around and feel kind of what's the smoothest part of my cup. And I think it's right here. I'm pretty sure it's right here. So we're gonna go in with the name. I don't do anything special as far as measuring or lining up. I just eyeball everything. I'm sure I could be more careful and really, like, I don't know, take my time and, you know, pull it away. But I haven't had any issues with this so far. Worst case, I mess up and then I just recut it. So we'll get the name on here. We have this curved surface, so I always go down first and then I kind of work my way out to make sure it lays right. And then I want this to lay flat without any crinkles, so I'm gonna lift, ooh, make sure I push down first. So I'm going a little more carefully this time. Pull that away. Making myself an easier thing to work with to get this on here. All right. For transfer paper, I use clear contact paper. It is a lot cheaper than using transfer vinyl, and I use this for everything. I have a surface where I do my glitters that I've lined this whole piece. I've lined the table in it. That way, when I'm doing my inks and glues and glitters and everything, once it gets too dirty, I can just pull up the shelf liner and replace it instead of having like a completely ruined, or even epoxy. I can just pull that up instead of completely ruining my surface. So we'll get this part on here. I seriously love the way this vinyl looks together. You want to make sure that it's not gonna kind of bubble weird when you lay it. So if you work your way from the inside of the decal and force it down, you can usually force it to lay like in an outward motion, if that makes sense. All right, so that's down. I'm gonna make sure it stays down. And then we're gonna go in with epoxy. There's a chance this can take, I know that the epoxy will give me a really good finish with one layer. But what I definitely wanna do is go around after I do this next layer of epoxy, and I'm gonna smooth it all out around the edges. If there's any bumps, yeah, look right here. I'm gonna smooth that, but I wanna get my epoxy on first. So I'm gonna do a layer of epoxy, pull it, give it the final sand, and then the final layer of epoxy, and that will be it. But it's just so pretty. Like, it comes out so, so pretty. And that little shiny offset from that rainbow vinyl is just perfect. So let's get to epoxy. All right, so we're going in with our speed dry epoxy. I just love this stuff. You get very, very little bubbles. Ooh, my cup is off. There we go. that sponge on there was sitting weird. So this is how I put my epoxy on, just to kind of avoid a ton of bubbles. I pour a big glob and I just let it roll around the top. And I feel like that also helps me kind of even it out so it doesn't want to pool up right there. And then just put it through the rest. And like I said, since this is a chunky glitter, I'm gonna let this first coat sit. I can come back to this in 2 hours. I'm probably gonna do 3 just because I have a few more things to do. And I feel like 3 is more of my safe, happy place for coming back to a cup. So I'm gonna come back here in a few hours, pull it, sand the edges, make sure everything is super, super smooth. There isn't any rough glitter along the top and bottom. And then I will go through with one final coat of speed dry. That is the amazing thing with speed dry, y'all. It is a fast setting epoxy, but it is UV resistant, so it can be used as a final coat. That is such a game changer. There are so many things that I set throughout the day, and I can just keep working. Like this cup really could have been done. Here it is. I'm really looking for my torch. I'm gonna go through and see if I can pop any bubbles just for peace of mind, but there aren't that many. This metallic, rainbow metallic vinyl, it's gonna show any bubbles. So I'm gonna go through just in case and see if there's any on there that are trying to show up. I'll let it sit for a little bit. After I run the torch over it, I'm gonna let it sit for a little bit, come back to it in maybe 5 minutes or so. Actually, maybe less than 5 minutes. And just double check with my torch again. If there are bubbles deeper in the epoxy, then it's gonna rise to the top. It'll be so much easier to pop. But if I hit my torch on it a ton right now waiting for it to pop, to pull up, then you run the risk of burning your epoxy. So I'm gonna be patient, let this sit for a bit. I'll come back, hit it with a torch, sand it just around the edges. I'm not gonna show you guys all that. If you wanna see it, let me know and I'll make a video on it. But that's pretty much it. I mean, such a simple, pretty cup. Definitely makes a statement. Outside in the sun, those little pieces, oh my god, it just, goodness, it catches a light. It's really, really pretty. So that's it. Easy enough. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Like I always say, I'm happy to help. Please like and subscribe, guys. There's a few other cups that I got out there and people wanted to know how it's made, so I'm gonna go for it and see if I can help you guys out. But like I said, I'm always doing this, so send me a message, DM. I'm cool to FaceTime if y'all have any questions. Just let me know how I can, look, like I mixed up my words. Let me know how I can help you guys. All right, see y'all soon.